He was a young kid from a rough neighborhood in South LA. His nightmare began at age 19.
They charged me with a murder, 3 attempted murders, with 3 attempted robberies, with special circumstances. And I'm like, whoa, what? Do you got the right person?
For Obie Anthony III, the stars aligned in a cruel constellation. He, like hundreds of others, was wrongfully convicted of murder.
They had no physical evidence. They didn't have no gun, they didn't have no they had fingerprints, they had shoe prints. They didn't match mine.
Another one of the wrongfully convicted was Rafael Madrigal. At 25, he had just moved away from East LA and was working in a factory. It was a mistaken time card that would help convict him of murder.
Your sentencing is 53 years to life. You know, you get shipped out to a prison that's about 6 hours away from your home. Now literally your world got taken away from you.
But this isn't just a story of how 2 wrongfully convicted men were sent to prison. It's the story about how difficult it is to rebuild lives after being freed, and how hard it can be to win compensation for their lost years behind bars.
Is anybody ever gonna say, you know what, we're sorry? Is anybody ever gonna be able to step up to the plate and say, you know what, we made a mistake? And the sad part about it, to this date, nobody has.
I met Obie Anthony in South Los Angeles, the last place he was free before his arrest. This is where you grew up?
This is where I grew up. This is home.
What does it feel like to be here now?
It's emotional, man. It's like, it's a little overwhelming because again, all around here, I grew up all around here. I mean, like, almost anybody I bump into around here may remember me from those times. Man, my mom died in here. My mom died in here. It's crazy, like. I was an uneducated black youth.
From a neighborhood
from a neighborhood that was one riddled with drugs, homelessness, gang activity, all kind of things, a bad education system, all of these things.
In 1994, on this street, a gang member was killed in a drive-by shooting. A witness identified Obie as one of the killers. The witness was a pimp who claimed to have seen the shooting.
I knew that he was lying because I knew I was not there, and I know that I don't know him, so I knew that he was lying, but to prove those things was a totally different question.
Obie was nowhere near the killing, and there was no DNA evidence to connect him to the murder. Still, the unthinkable happened.
They fed him information, they kept information away from us, and they used him for their ends, which was to place me in prison.
Obie was found guilty. He came here to Corcoran Prison to begin a life sentence.
My mom had just passed away, so the only rock that I had to keep me grounded was gone. So I was lost. I was really lost, but I knew that I couldn't get, lost in that loss because I was in jail now.
Obie had been languishing in prison for 6 years when a letter arrived. An attorney had found evidence that the pimp who identified Obie had not actually seen any of the suspects, but he lied to get a lighter sentence on the pimping charge. It was a turning point.
And that there opened the door for the Northern Innocent Project and Loyola Marymount Project for the Innocent to get a hold of my case.
How did it feel when you knew that you had people on the outside that were changing things for you? I mean, did you not want to get your hopes up, or did you?
I started giving stuff away. I knew that was it. I knew my Creator, and I knew because He said the innocent will be vindicated.
While the appeals process ground on, Obie got a visit from a childhood friend. Her name was Denise, and their meeting would change their lives.
Oh, the first time I seen him, it was through a glass. And when I looked at him, I was like, oh my goodness. Because I was gonna hook him up with my friend. because I was going to see my brother, and I wanted my friend to actually, call OBL so he can have somebody and be out on the visit every week. Well, it kind of turned around, and I wanted to see Obi, and that's what happened. I started seeing Obi, and
You decided to keep him for yourself.
yeah.
Denise stuck by Obi through his 14th, 15th, 16th year in prison. Finally, after years of legal work, they presented their evidence to a judge. It all came down to the judge's ruling.
He started saying things, and I was like, man, before he even said that I was innocent and that I was coming home, that the charges would be dropped, I had already known. I was just sitting there saying, say it, say it, say it, say it. And when he finally said it, it was like, yes.
Man, that was an exciting day. That was an exciting day. I had been waiting on that day since day one, from 2008 till 2011. I was just ready to start my life with him.
His last hours behind bars were spent here at LA County Jail. His life as a free man started when he walked through these doors.
This is where it started for me. This is where my new life actually begun. Walking out of these doors right here into these arms right here. And it was like, wow, I was like, dang, man. I was like, this is over. I was like, I couldn't wait. And then it was like a lot of people that was out here, and it was like, we talked to the reporters a little bit. Walking through them doors is the beginning of me and who I am today. The first thing I did was I went up to that room. It was a room, right? They got a hotel room right next to close to the jail. I got a room, took a hot shower, and dove in a soft bed. And then we ate some chicken and some teriyaki chicken and some stuff like that. It was good.
Obi Anthony was exonerated. He had a clean record and a devoted wife. But he also lost more than 17 years of his life.
They can't never compensate me for 17 years. I still don't got kids. It's a lot of stuff that I'm now just able to do because they took it from me. "50 miles east of Los Angeles, another young man was about to be snared in the justice system. The year was 2000. Rafael Madrigal Jr. was 25.
A typical day for me, let's say maybe a Monday or Tuesday, was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, taking my wife to work, coming back home, getting ready, going to work, getting off 3:30, 4:30, depending on how much work we had for the day. At the time, we only had two boys, my two oldest. So, spending the rest of the afternoon with them.
Rafael and Veronica were high school sweethearts in East LA. Rafael was involved with gangs, but after graduating, he and Veronica got married and moved to Riverside County to leave the gang life behind.
They would tell us, you guys aren't gonna make it. Who makes it at, being a teenager and stuff, but, here we are.
But on a summer day in 2000, the life they were building fell apart.
We lived in a cul-de-sac. Right before I drove into the cul-de-sac, I noticed there was several sheriff deputies parked on the side of the street, not directly in front of my house, but about 2 blocks away. And first thing that came to my mind is, wow, they're gonna give somebody a rude awakening early in the morning, because it was only 6 o'clock in the morning. Never did it cross my mind that they were actually going to my house.
Sheriff's deputies were there to take Rafael in for questioning. The crime? A drive-by shooting that happened the day before, 45 miles away in East LA. A Latino gang member was shot and killed by a rival gang. Rafael was a suspect.
I think I was angry, I was frustrated, I was scared. It was just a bunch of emotions that I felt.
No DNA evidence tied Rafael to the crime. But a witness ID'd Rafael based on a mugshot from a 10-year-old misdemeanor charge. On the day of the crime, Rafael was at his job working for a packaging company. But court documents show he couldn't prove it because of a mistake on his time card. The jury found Rafael guilty. His sentence, 53 years to life.
I think the verdict, when the guilty verdict came in, it felt, I can honestly say, just as bad as when I got arrested. But now you're hearing it, you're seeing it in front of you, and now your family's behind you and hearing it and seeing it also. So it's like, you know, now literally your world got taken away from you.
Rafael spent year after year in prison while his children grew up and his wife struggled to support them. He missed the birth of his third child, Kimberly. The first time he saw her was when she visited him in prison.
The first contact visit that she was actually able to have communication and be able to hold and hug him, it was not what we expected. The minute she seen him, her eyes lit up like stars. They lit up. But as soon as he tried to hold her, she freaked out. It was different seeing him from a glass window than seeing him personal and being able to touch him. I could see his demeanor just, fall. His face just became sad, and I said, you gotta give her a chance. Like, it's not easy. One thing is seeing you through a glass, and the other one is being able to hold you. She doesn't know you like that.
It was Rafael's 8th year behind bars when a letter arrived. The attorney who was working on his appeal took a closer look at the evidence against him. That triggered a series of events that led to the breakthrough Rafael had been waiting for. The manager at his workplace said that Rafael had to have been at work at the time of the murder. The Innocence Project would take his case.
I was never discouraged. I never lost hope. That's the one thing I could honestly say. I never lost hope.
Then another break. A fellow inmate convicted of the same murder made a call from prison. It was recorded. In the conversation, he said Rafael was not involved in the killing. These two pieces of crucial evidence convinced a judge to overturn Rafael's conviction.
I did believe in his innocence from the beginning. I just said, if you're innocent, you're gonna come out, and I believed him.
In the fall of 2009, after nearly 10 years of incarceration, Rafael walked out of Chino State Penitentiary, exonerated.
There was a lot of cameras, but to me, the cameras were blocked out. My focus was seeing my kids, seeing my family, my wife, my mom.
I asked him, what was the best part of that day?
Hugging my kids. They would visit me in prison, but a hug in prison is not the same. You're allowed a 30-second hug. Go. This time I was able to hold on to him for as long as I wanted to.
He was home for good, but picking up where he left off almost a decade after seeing the police at his door would not be easy. For the newly freed, restarting life can be difficult.
I think one of the saddest parts about an exoneree, you get exonerated, they open the door, they show you the door, and that's all you get.
California is one of 30 states that offers some form of compensation to exonerees. An exoneree can apply for $140 for every day spent in state prison.
What would you trade 20 years in prison for? Would you trade it for $500,000, $600,000, which is what they're getting through this process?
Civil rights attorney David McLean handled O.B. Anthony's compensation case.
So when you weigh that they know that it doesn't fully compensate them, you would think that they would try to ensure the process is as fair as possible.
For Obi, his claim comes to just over $580,000 for 17 years in prison. Rafael would get $280,000 for 9 years in prison. But payment is not guaranteed.
You have to prove your innocence, and people have a hard time understanding that.
Wayne Strumpfer is chief counsel for the board that reviews the claims.
We're not saying, hey, you don't deserve to be out of prison. We're just saying in order to get $140 a day to be compensated for actually being wrongfully convicted, you have to prove you were wrongfully convicted. And not that you just got off on a technicality or got off because a juror might have made a mistake or an attorney made a mistake, but actually because you were innocent.
Put another way, in a trial, you're presumed innocent until proven guilty. But when in front of the Compensation Review Board, you are assumed ineligible until proven innocent.
They said it's their job to protect the taxpayer and only pay those people who are truly innocent. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, what I'd say in response is that they've gone overboard and raised too high a bar and created too many procedural hurdles for people who are truly innocent.
There is one thing that can virtually guarantee compensation. It's called a finding of factual innocence.
If a Superior Court judge makes a finding of factual innocence, that's enough. That's a preponderance of the evidence that that person is innocent. And so it has sort of been streamlined.
Obi was lucky. A judge issued a finding of factual innocence. He's in line to receive compensation, more than $500,000. Rafael was not as lucky. He did not receive a finding of factual innocence. Rafael's claim for compensation? Denied.
It doesn't make any sense to me. It confuses me more because that's what I don't understand. You're releasing him, but you're not compensating him even though his charges were overturned. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Stumpfer says in the past, only about a third of exonerees would get compensation, but that number has improved.
Now, over the past year and a half, our approval rate is 75%, 80%. So this change in the law that does streamline these cases and allows a defendant to get a finding of factual innocence, bring it to the board, and say, pay me, works.
Despite the improvement, McLean still feels the review process is too tough.
The system is kind of rigged against the defendants.
And for the exonerated, it's another emotional ordeal.
I didn't feel I was gonna have to go through was literally going through another trial for this compensation. I mean, going up in front of a board and the board members accusing you, nobody has said that you're innocent. You know, it's devastating.
My name is Obi Anthony. At the age of 19, I was tried and convicted of a murder in which I did not commit.
Obi Anthony has built a new life. He's a vocal advocate for innocent people stuck behind bars.
I knew that the system wasn't perfect, but it wasn't the system that I realized wasn't perfect, but the individual that was inside the system.
And he was struck by an additional injustice. Parolees who were guilty of a crime get help finding jobs and housing. Exonerees who never committed a crime got no help of any kind.
The system that falsely accused me, convicted me, incarcerated me, took 17 years from me, did zero.
He wanted to do something to change that. So in 2015, he went to Sacramento to testify before the state assembly.
So I'm here today and ask for your aye vote in support of the bill because of how the tremendous work and the help that it'll do.
A law was passed. It was dubbed OBIE'S law. It requires the Department of Corrections to assist exonerees after they're released, to help them rebuild their lives, to get simple things like a driver's license.
Once they come home, they will now receive a stipend of funds to help them to transition back into society and to help them get their Social Security card, identification card.
But he hasn't stopped there. Obi's taking another step. He's starting a nonprofit organization called Exonerated Nation. Its mission will be to help exonerees like him get back on their feet.
The mission of the nonprofit is to not only assist exonerees when they come home to transition back into a society, but to also to act as a nucleus to all the other centers that has been risen by exonerees across the United States.
It's being called a record settlement.
Exonerated Nation exists because of a multi-million-dollar settlement from the city of Los Angeles. Obi Anthony was awarded $8.3 million for wrongful imprisonment. This award is separate from the state compensation he is still waiting for.
When I won my civil complaint and the city attorney acknowledged the fact that they was wrong by way of awarding me $8.3 million. You don't give a person $8.3 million and say that he did something. No, you just don't do that.
He never thought he would end up as the founder and director of a nonprofit organization.
But here I am. I'm excited about it, and I'm motivated to get these things not only completed, but also to be successful and to help other individuals not be in the situation, in other words, in which I was when I came home.
People in his old neighborhood in South LA are proud of him.
There's a lot of guys who get out and they might still be ripping and running and dibbling and dabbling and get called back up. You know, It's sometimes if you don't change your mind, you're gonna do what you always done. You know, and I see that he's grown a lot and matured a lot, and it's good that he's coming back and giving back, and I'm proud of him.
Obi and Denise have made a new home in Missouri near Obi's relatives.
So I defeated the monster that was after me, and I get to come and stand here on their site and declare that victory and talk about that exoneration and talk about now how I'm gonna take that victory and move forward and help other individuals.
OBIE'S battle for compensation will be over when he receives that check for $581,600 from the state of California for 5,816 days in prison. RAFAEL'S circumstances are very different than OBIE'S, but 6 years after being released from prison, he's also rebuilding his life.
It takes on you, it's hard. It's hard, you know. You have those moments where you're enjoying your family, but then there's those moments where you don't know how to react. You don't know how to act. You know, you're used to being in a enclosed cell for 23 hours a day. Having people run around you and just have a normal day, it's not normal for you. You know, there was moments where, you know what, I had to back up. I had to go sit myself in a room and just, you know, because it was hard.
Without compensation, the first challenge facing exonerees is financial. For RAFAEL, it meant finding a job after nearly a decade out of the workforce.
In 10 years, you lose a lot of experience. You have a 10-year gap in your application. They want to know what happened in those 10 years. You know, it's a question they have every right to ask. But then when you explain yourself, it's like, okay, well, you're not qualified for the position.
On his first job application, RAFAEL made a mistake.
Ask the question if you've ever been to prison or been convicted of a felony. Well, I had no idea that I was no longer a convicted felon, and there was no reason for me to put any of the information that had happened with me prior to this. Well, on the day that I was supposed to get hired, I was actually fired because of me being in prison before.
The next time around, he did it right, and he got the job. Today, RAFAEL works 6 days a week in a manufacturing plant in Chino.
I love my job. I mean, the company I work for, they're the owner, from the owner to the vice president to the janitor, everybody's awesome there.
And in 2010, something even better came along.
Soon after he was released, I got pregnant and I had my daughter Leslie. She is now 5. So it was, you know what, it's like he said, it was a gift.
Other than me coming home, I think she's the biggest blessing. You know, she's the one that helped us just all come back together.
Really?
She was the bond.
I think our relationship has gotten much, much stronger, and the kids too, we're very open with them. And as far as, you know, them with us also, so it's, you know, it's been a journey.
RAFAEL'S first claim for compensation was denied, but he's appealing this decision. With 4 children, 1 in college, the money would make a big difference in their futures.
Will I ever get compensated? I think only the state knows that. You know, am I gonna keep on fighting? Yes, I am.
Why?
Because I think that's gonna be the closure part. That's gonna be, whether it's for good or for bad, it's gonna be the closure where I can finally put this behind me.
What's ahead for RAFAEL is a life with his family. He's getting to know his oldest son, Andrew, who was only 6 when his father was imprisoned.
The most challenging time probably had to be seeing my mom struggle through it all, just to put food on the table, just to provide for us and care for our needs.
Andrew is now a student at Cal State Long Beach, majoring in criminal justice. Does your father inspire you now? I mean, because of everything that he's been through?
Yeah, it inspires me every day. I mean, that's the whole reason I'm in college right now. I just want to put my time in college and really demonstrate that, you know, everything that my family's been through has not been a waste. And I'm just trying to get the rest of my family in a better place. And I think we'll get there. You know, we're all making strides and looking towards the positive, even though there's been some negatives in the past, but we're all looking towards the future and hoping for the best.
The best for the family would be winning the fight for compensation and putting this ordeal behind them.
Whether they grant it or not, only time will tell. But once that process is done, that's it. I don't have to keep on going back to a courtroom and explain to myself, I did not commit this crime. I don't have to go in front of people saying you never proved yourself. How do we know you're innocent? It just puts all those doubters out of your way.